Okay, let's get going. Good to see everybody. As you can see with the slides that I just scrolled through really quickly, we've got a bunch to go through today. One thing that I added, I wanted to get some feedback on the mind map assignment after reading through those on Sunday. I want to kick us off to the next step in designing your life, the Odyssey plans, and in particular start workshopping one of those three plans, that thing you do, and have an opportunity for you to get some feedback on that. And also want to continue our public stories. So you've done your introduction, and now we're going to move forward with that ahead of the assignment that you have due on Saturday night. So in terms of the mind maps, my first comment is thank you for your effort with the tech and putting those together and recording them. They were amazing. And the other thing that I'll say is that this is the second, third, fourth time that we've started to go through your stories. And I think for most people, your stories are emerging as the strengths. So I really appreciate with what you're disclosing, the fact now that you're giving them over and over again and just becoming a little bit more comfortable. And as you do that, they become more authentic. And so now with the things that are really coming through aren't necessarily you're struggling the nuts and bolts to tell the story, but to start sharing it. And I think that first and foremost was really encouraging. So thank you for those. A general thing as you're giving presentations, and this is a thing for this course because there'll be a number of them left. And I think this stems from, restating the question when you write things to make sure that you're clear. When you're going through a presentation, especially one with PowerPoint or a visual aid, and very often there is a title or a header, like on this one it says mind maps, right? Or there is a section that you have to complete for an assignment. If you have the header on the slides, if you have information on the slides, and then there are things that you're going to say, you do not have to stop and say, okay, this is my life view, or okay, this is an introduction to my mind map. I appreciate why you might do that, but I want you to consider that everything else that you've put together makes it very clear that this is an introduction. And if you do introduce yourself and say something about you, that makes it very clear. And so by stating what's on the slides, you're really taking away from the material that you're conveying and the connection that you're having with the user. That's not to say, if you just say, hey, I'd like to introduce myself, my name is Bill Romani, that's different than saying my first slide is the introduction, or for the introduction I want to. So it's a small thing, but because your stories are getting better and because we're going to do a bunch of these, this is one of the finer points that I think you can take a look at. Still a little bit of work on the headline. A number of your headlines were long, several word descriptions of what your mind map was. Again, if you're showing the visual depiction of your map and you have gone through and talked about the words that you've used in the center and around the outside, what you're looking for in a headline is a quick couple of words, again, under 30 characters, to capture the essence of it, not to kind of define it. When you define it, there is a couple of things that happen there. One, again, it's very cumbersome. But two, if you particularly explain something, it either makes you look a little bit unsure, unconfident that what you've conveyed actually conveys your piece, or that you're almost asking permission to do it. So again, first time you've done this, we had the one little activity. We're going to do some more on that in putting together your headlines with the Odyssey plan. So be mindful. This is a little bit of quizmanship or quizpersonship when you're doing an assignment. Almost everybody connected their life view to their mind maps, which was lovely to read or to see. The assignment was to connect your work view to your mind maps, right? And most of you did that. So almost everybody did that. So again, when you're looking at the assignment and the criteria, I know that to this point, everything that we've done has been life view, work view, life view, work view. But in this assignment, all I was looking for was the work view. So just a key there to go ahead and look at the criteria as to what we're doing. If there's a question, shoot me an email. And like you saw this week, I'll be happy on the timing. I'm happy to clarify that for everybody. Something that a number of you did to take this to the next level, when you described your view, your values, or where they came from, a number of you also said, and this is the impact that it makes on what I do every day. Or this has shown me that, or what you've learned. So not only are you telling me about that value, not only are you telling me about a story of where it came from, you're telling me how you've applied it. And that's really compelling. So I appreciate that a lot of you have already started to do that. And last, the mind map is not a binding contract for things that you're going to do. This is an exploration in expansive thinking for you to look at what you do during the day and start to expand and get an idea of what it is that you love about those experiences. And maybe you would use that information somewhere else. So it's an expansive thinking project. As a result, it's important for you to go through the steps in the project or in the exercise to get that expansive thinking. So this is the model that I showed you last week. And so if we start with that center word, A for activity, the first words that we put around that ring are going to be directly associated with that activity. So we've described that activity, but we are not expansive thinking, and we are not anywhere near being away from that activity, which is what we're trying to get through the rings. If we were to go to the second ring, right? And so 5A, this word is 5, and A is a direct correlation between that word and my starting word. As I start thinking of words that remind me of A, there are some that will still refer back to this first word, but I'm going to start to get some differences, right? There'll be some 5Bs in there. So I'm starting to get away from that first word. If I go to a third and fourth level, right? So I go to 5B, and now I've got some words that are similar to 5B. Maybe one of them comes all the way back, but now I'm starting to get into some new ideas like 5C. And if I were to go off yet a fourth ring, I'm starting to get totally different concepts. I'm at the D range. I am 3-4 words removed from this center activity. So now, rather than having a linear activity that's directly related to the word that I started with, I've started to expand my thinking. And I've started to get away from that a little bit. And that is the entire point of an exercise like this. You're not looking for it to define a way to do this first word. You're looking to expand or to break out, right? And remember the title of this chapter, Getting Unstuck, from a consistent mindset so that you can start to think a little bit differently, right? So that's one of the reasons that the book and me and the criteria kind of talked about getting out to 3 or 4 rings, because what you end up doing is you expand your thinking. What we didn't necessarily want, although it could happen, and it could reasonably happen, we didn't want the words that you came with those outer words in the structure, and we talked about this on Thursday in class, to necessarily be an offshoot or reflect directly the center activity. We want to develop something that you enjoy. You picked that activity because it gave you engagement or energy or flow. We're trying to find out in general terms what that means to you. That was the purpose of this. So if I were to look at this example, this is Oliver's. And so Oliver's activity for engagement was his work study job, right? That's where he started. And so, you know, his words were stress and future and motivation, dedication, anxiety. These are his 5 words that he started with. And then as you see, as he starts branching out and getting further and further away, we're 4 rows, you know, even some linear 5 rows away. And then he came up with words that when he put it down, didn't really have much to do with his job, But the experience that he talked about was having some time to walk your dogs to decompress and get rid of the stress after work, right? So that's where his design thinking brought him to. It wasn't necessarily about his work study job and how he could do it better, what it might be if he had a different type of software or different engagement. Using those words and getting away from the job actually got him thinking about an activity of engagement after work to refresh or to re-energize. And that's kind of where we're getting with that. So Oliver, thank you for that. Thank you for letting me use it. Does that make sense? Again, if you can flip your cameras on, that would be great, so that we can interact. Although Alejandro, I love you have the best picture for your screensaver. What kind of questions do you still have about the mind maps or impressions, insights, takeaways?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun to kind of explore my own story and get it all down on paper and kind of like practice knowing more about myself, if that makes sense.
Totally.
And it was I enjoyed the mind map assignment.
Yeah, I mean, I barely know all of your last names, and I feel like I'm on a first name basis with Lori, right? I mean, so I would agree with that.
I also feel like how you had us like record privately made it probably a lot easier for a lot of people to like present as opposed to like in front of everybody. At least personally, I was more comfortable like saying things at ease in my own room than in front of like the entire class. I don't know. Maybe that's just
That
me.
is an awesome insight, and I do appreciate that, Evan, because where that makes a ton of sense to me, the reason that I did it was for time. I wasn't even thinking about that. So so I appreciate that. That's very helpful. Thank you. Anybody else feel that way? Did you feel like you disclosed more because you were by yourself and you could just kind of, it was just you and your screen and you could do it? Okay. All right, that's helpful. That's helpful. The nice thing is that most of the other assignments will be set up that way. Even though we will be sharing, including this weekend, when you do the next step of your public story, that will be a recorded sharing on a forum in which you'll be able to give feedback and forth to each other. It'll be about 70, 80 seconds, right? It's not going to be huge, but it'll be the same thing. Okay, anything else? Okay. I want to get into the Odyssey plans. So I'm going to ask you a question. You've heard it before. Do we have more creativity with more choices or less choices? Raise your hand if you think less choices. Raise your hand if you think more choices. Right? Obviously, right? The more opportunities, the more choices we have, the higher likelihood that we're going to have higher levels of creativity. That's all this Odyssey plan exercise is. Pretty much everybody, and I can say this because you have written about it, so it's not conjecture on my part, has an idea of what they either want to or feel like they should be doing while they're at Loyola to prepare them for life afterwards, in the workforce or grad school or whatever it is. Or some of you, Nick's talked about a two-step plan. He's going to grad school and then he's got a job lined up, right? So a lot of you have an idea what that is. As far as I know, I mean, I have taught undergraduate classes where a lot of the students have had significant work experience. I'm not sure that that's the case a lot here at Loyola. But a lot of you are guessing, right? Just like I did. Like that's, you're guessing at what's going to make you happy. And so what we want to do is take advantage of this awesome opportunity you have here over the next 3.5 years to put together experiences where you can explore and make sure you're making the best informed guess that you can. And so the other piece here is that with your Odyssey plans, we are going to have these 3 choices. If somebody wants to do more, they're welcome to do that. But it's important too to understand that I and Burnett and Evans are not telling you if you have a really good plan to go into forensic sciences or go work for the FBI or to go to law school or be an accountant. I'm not telling you you can't do that. In fact, I'm telling you that would be awesome if you could do that. But let's make sure, right? Or let's structure that experience in a way that you're really going to enjoy it, right? And you're going to have a joyful life. And if you want to, if service is important to you, you can continue to do that. So it's also, because it's just an exercise, it's permission that you may not have had to this point to be able to explore some of these other things. So a lot of times there might be some fear of entertaining other things, right? Either because there's a lot of pressure or something that you've kind of set yourself up for, like you've been working your whole life. I mean, I stayed up late at night in high school in AP biology and all my classes studying because I wanted to go to Dartmouth, right? That's what drove me. Like I would do it. And then I got to Hanover, New Hampshire, and it was so, does anybody have any family that works at Dartmouth? It was so arrogant and pretentious. I hated it in the first 6 minutes. And so I had to come up with another plan, right? And so we're going to put you in a position to be able to think about that. And there's a lot of pressure, both overt and covertly, for you to have this all figured out, right? We've talked a lot about connecting. If you were to have a conversation and meet somebody's friends at Boulder, somebody new came and you struck up a conversation, one of the first things after where you're from is what's your major, right? Even you guys, right? Your first years, you don't even have to, we don't even make you get a major until next fall, right? So there is this idea that you should have it figured out by now. It's part of this common narrative, right? And it feeds into this belief that they talk about in the book and that I agree with, that you need to figure out your best possible life. And if you don't know your major right now and you don't know what you're going to do, you're somehow behind. So you better get on with it and execute this plan. What we're going to do in terms of a reframe is to acknowledge the fact that there are multiple great lives and plans that you could have and explore. And you are in the best position to choose which one to build your way forward to. Again, for those of you that are like, Bill, this sounds awesome, we're just going to go do it. Awesome. Give me a minute. We'll get to it. But I know too, from teaching this a number of times, that there are folks that feel like, hey, I really know what I'm going to do, and I can't consider doing something else. I got to go back to my hometown. I got to be a lawyer. I'm going to work at the same firm as my grandfather. I'm going to, like, I have to do that. It's like, okay. What kind of law are you going to practice? What are you going to do between undergraduate and law school to maybe give you some more experiences so that you'll enjoy that a little bit more? What are you going to do? What clubs, what organizations, what other activities are you going to be part of if you're going to be the civic pillar in your small town to participate in? I'm not telling you can't be the lawyer in the law firm, right? The book's not telling you that. The activities aren't telling you that. But when you start to look and explore all of these different ways to do things, it opens you up. And I think that the example that they used in the book of the fellow that had the 3 internships and the epiphany was, hey, I can do all 3. And he didn't even get through the first one before he decided to go forward with the 4th, because he was being mindful and aware of these experiences that he had coaching his own friends that he decided that's what he wanted to do. So that's what this is, right? And so my question is, like, what do you have to lose in really buying in and trying to think of 3 completely different avenues to go into? And certainly that thing you do could be the expectation that you have now, the path you're on, that you've chosen, somebody's chosen for you, that you feel like, you know, society has forced you to choose. You know, I'll give you an example. Well, I'll give you an example with me. When I was coming out of high school, I had gotten into the Naval Academy. I had gotten into a couple programs with communications. I thought I was going to be in broadcasting. And I had gotten into some physical therapy schools. I had 3 really big decisions to make, right? Being a physical therapist in the Navy wasn't going to work because they told me they want 20 years, and at 18, that sounds like a long time to me, right? So it's like, okay, I need to figure out what I want to do right away, right? So the PT thing, the physical therapy thing made a lot of sense because they're the second most jobs. I think computer sciences were number 1 and physical therapy was number 2 for jobs, right? There was a practical reason to go and to do that, right? There was some external pressure and some norms that I was conforming to do it. But let me ask you this. What if accounting went away? The example they use in the book. What if consulting went away? We're not doing that anymore. So I'm going to take this away from you. What else would you consider? Right? You know what? Dr. Rivers made a mistake. There are no jobs left in forensic sciences. What else are you going to do? What are your other choices? Again, by doing it as part of this exercise, you know, just entertaining it. And then the last one, if money wasn't an issue, and if image were no object, right? So when I'm talking about image, it's, hey, I need to be pursuing a job where people think it makes a lot of sense because there are jobs available, right? That's image. Or I don't want to pursue a job. I don't want to pursue a degree in humanities because I don't want to look like a silly artist that isn't going to be able to get a job when I graduate, right? That's what I mean by money and image. What is it that you would do? It's like, you know what? I'm looking at Ethan's screensaver there. I was like, if I could get paid to ski somehow, that'd be awesome, right? I don't have to do the business thing. I don't have to do the, I don't do the artist thing. Do that. That's our third choice, right? So again, creativity, one of the things that to drive creativity is constraints. We're going to put some constraints on. Your top choice isn't there. Some of you might appreciate that constraint. All right. I also want to point out that we're getting back to a lot of these fundamental concepts. And I want to keep coming back to these things that we talked about early on, right? So we talked about learn from failure. We read the article about productive failures. This is what we're doing here. We're not thinking about this as, hey, I'm going to do a couple of these things and they're not going to work and I'm going to fail. You're not. You're going to remember a productive failure, or what we described had to be that went into a productive failure, or good companies that have this no fear to fail mindset are, you're going to create experiments to make sure that you're going to learn something when you come out of them. And so that's what this process is going to do. You're going to be developing and figuring out, what don't I know, what questions I'm going to ask so that I get some information. So if I try that thing that I would do if my top choice went away, what am I going to learn about? What am I going to learn about myself? What am I going to learn about the pathway there? Right? It's like, hey, I think I want to be in the FBI, so I'm going to do some things about that. And I've had students, you know, forensics and poli-sci and other places decide they want to do that, and then they look into the internships, and then they start to see what it's going to be, what's entailed, and you're like, you know what, I'm not sure I want to do that. Great, perfect time to find that out. Right? We set up an experiment to see, do I want to go through the preparation and the sacrifice to do that? It could be no. The other one is, oh, I want to be pre-med. I want to be pre-vet. I want to do this. Sorry about that. But there's a problem. I don't like blood. I looked in on an anatomy class. Cooler opened up. bag got unzipped. I'm not doing that for 4 months in the anatomy. So, okay, great. And it gives you an opportunity to be curious in a no-risk way, right? So we talk about prototyping and this idea that we're going to create experiments and try things so that if it doesn't work out, we don't lose much. There's no risk, right? But also starting to be aware, right? Carson, and I know Sydney has said this too, in doing the mind maps, I appreciated the opportunity to be able to look at myself and to be able to identify what's important to me, right? That's what this process is about. So I'm going to ask you to be curious, not about a subject area, not about philosophy or theology or English, about yourselves, right? About the opportunities you have for yourselves. And one of the things that we started with here, you're going to be determining different ways for you to go. And the first thing is, where you at, right? So this idea of a dashboard that we started early on is going to come up again here with your Odyssey plans. You know, this idea of, you know, a dashboard and then coherency, right? Is this plan that I've developed coherent with my views and what's possible for me and my comfort level? Right? So this will be a quite well thought out structure. And if you were to look in the book, this is an example of an Odyssey plan. It looks like a lot, but let's take a look at what we have here. We have a very short story of title with 30 characters or less, right? There are a number of questions that are going to be asked or unknowns that you're going to try to solve in this process. There is a dashboard where you start to look at a level of coherence, your confidence that you would be able to do something like this, whether you think you would like it, and whether you have the resources to be able to put it together. That's not necessarily the money, but do I have access to the things that I need to do? And then last, as we got into last week, there's a timeline and drawing. So this idea of storyboarding, we're going to explore on Thursday, where you're identifying in graphic terms what path you are going to follow. You're not just going to say, hey, when I graduate, I'm going to be this. There are some steps that you will need to take along the way that you will be able to set up in your plan, right? I'm not just going to throw you out there and have you do it. Like everything else we've done, we're going to go through a process sequentially, one step at a time, to be able to bring you through this. And we're going to start with one plan, that thing you do plan, and we're going to start workshopping that today. You'll have some work to do tonight and tomorrow, and then you'll be bringing back the first parts of that for us to work on further on Thursday. And so the first step in this map is going to be expansive thinking, where guess what? You're going to brainstorm and generate ideas. Those of you that are already lockstep in a major, I'm still going to ask you to brainstorm, because I'm not just going to ask you about a major, I'm going to ask you about the type of job you want, right? So I'm an accountant. Do I want to be a CPA? Do I want to work for another company? Do you want to do forensic accounting? Like, what is it that you want to do? Why is it that you like accounting? Right? Identify themes. I'm going to put some time on it and we're going to go. I'm going to ask you to write a headline to identify this plan, right? Very quickly. And then what we're going to get to over the next couple of days is developing experiments, really just trying to figure out what unknowns are there, right? So this is the workshop. This is online. It's on the Moodle page for you to look at. This is the top third. There's one of these for each of the 3 sections that I have set out for you. And what we're going to start with, today is you're going to come up with your ideas. You're going to come up with your themes. Then you're going to come up with a title, right? So there's going to be a little bit that goes into that. Then I'm going to ask you about the unknowns. Once you get done with this part, what we'll start doing on Thursday, right? So you've got your title. We're going to figure out how to ask really good questions to solve those unknowns. So you don't have to do this for Thursday, but we're going to do it on Thursday. And then we will be looking at coming up with pictures that will start with where you are right now and get us to the summer and fall of 2024 when you'll be leaving here. What will that look like? Okay, and then making some coherent decisions, your dashboard for your plan. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to start to tie this together with your public story, right? So last week, you delivered your introduction of your public story, and you saw this one from me. My name's Bill. I'm a physical therapist. I'm from Ithaca. My parent, I followed my dad around when he did these activities. My mom was always busting stuff up, organizing movements, right? But now we're going to go to the next piece, right? Those unknowns are going to start to become challenges for you, things that you have to overcome, right? This is an exploration for you, right? And, not all challenges have to be really, really hard, but everybody has them, right? And so your next part of your public story, and this is to just kind of show you where we're going. I've always valued public service. I'm interested in learning more about the role that government and public policy can have on helping people, right? So if you know that service and helping people are some of my values, and I'm starting now to explore a way to be able to do that in a career or role, right? That's where you're going to start going. And so if you looked at my Odyssey plan called the Capitol Hill Caper, and my questions in being able to do this, if I was a 19 or 20-year-old student, maybe a sophomore or junior, not a first year, how do I apply for an internship on Capitol Hill? What are some jobs on some campaigns that I can do right now to get some political experience? Do I need to go to grad school to work on Capitol Hill? These are all questions that I would have, and I would create experiences to try to find the answers to those things, right? So if I'm interested in political science and I know I have to take a core course in political science, I might pick one that would help me answer these questions. Maybe even decide if I wanted to be a political science major, right? I could volunteer on a campaign, and I could very easily go to career services and explore the process to apply for an internship, right? And these things will all move forward year by year. I'm guessing, totally guessing as to what's going to happen. But I'm going to start to set up experience in a mindful way, right? And then when I'm done and I've applied on Capitol Hill and I know what I want to do, maybe I want to go into healthcare policy or public policy, that might inform what grad school I want to go to, right? So what's the role that I want to have? And I kind of set that up, and we'll do it in arrows and pictures. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to have you, if you have this online, if you picked it up on Moodle, great. If you have a piece of paper, I'm going to leave this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on the clock here, and I'm going to ask you to jot down ideas for about 30 or 40 seconds about that thing you do. This is a plan that is in line with what you think your goals are or what you think you want to do here at Loyola. And then I'm going to have you kind of develop some themes and then come up with a title. All right. Once you come up with your title, what are some things that you don't know? Like if you were going to have Jim Dickinson from Career Services come in here, or you're going to have an expert in your field come in, what are some things that you would ask them, or what are some things that you don't know, either about your profession, about your major, or the steps to be able to get there, or your ability to do it? You can have 11 questions. We'll narrow it down to a few to work on. Before I get started, I'm going to put that slide back up there, by the way, in case you don't have the slides. I just want to make sure, what kind of questions do you have, ideas, comments, before we jump into this? Okay. All right, pull my screen back up. Has anybody done anything like this, by the way? Okay. Starting right now, I would like you to start writing down ideas for a role or a plan that would get you towards what you're considering doing right now. Go. Volume is key here. This is a brainstorm. Who can get to 10? Five more seconds. Get your last couple thoughts down. Okay. Round the room on two hands. How many ideas do you have? Okay, I want you to turn your piece of paper over and we're going to do it some more. I'm going to give you 15 more seconds. I need you to come up with some more ideas. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this. Go right to that piece of paper. I want you to write a line off of each one of the words that you have written down. And I want you to write a word that has to do with that word for each one. So you're going to double what you have. Ready? Go. Okay. Were you able to double? Get some more to work with? Okay. I would like you to take a look at what you have and see what kind of themes have emerged. I'll give you a minute to do that. And again, don't forget, when you're theme building, if you've got one thing that goes with a couple, it can be used more than once, right? So if you've got 9 things written down now, don't feel like you can't use one of those 9 things more than one time when you're building themes. What kind of themes have emerged? Okay, you got your themes? All right, I'm going to expand you one more time. This is a little bit off script. I want you to think of this next brainstorm. What do you want this plan to feel like? So I don't want to say, well, it feels like I'm a financial planner. It's like, no. What does it feel like? What are the emotions? What are you excited about? What does it feel like? Or what do you want it to feel like if it's a great experience for you? If you want to use some of the terms that we've used, like energy flow and engagement, great. If you want to use values and emotion, great. What does this experience feel like? 5 seconds. Okay. Who wants to share some themes? Somebody hasn't spoken today. Share some themes that you've developed on that thing you do.
I can.
Okay.
So I basically was talking just about like, creativity.
Welcome back, Ethan.
I'm sorry.
Good to see you.
Oh, good to see you too. My camera doesn't work. I don't know why. I keep trying to turn it on and it's not working. So,
Okay.
but I guess so. My themes that I have, creativity, adventure, and like happiness. So those are all kind of things that tie into what I want to do. And
Okay.
the things that I put down, I said like product design, industrial design, working at like a multimedia company like Apple or Disney,
Okay.
going to ski on my own. If that was something that like I didn't have any limitations to, if like I guess that's the adventure and happiness aspect of just being able to like do anything freely. And
Okay.
then working in a creative environment where I had that like I guess constructive criticism team. So yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Ethan, for this one, we're gonna keep focused on that thing you do. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Who else has got some themes they want to share? Who else has got some themes they're going to share?
I can
Thanks,
go.
Abby.
So the themes that I noticed when I wrote down like what I want to do, I saw like workload and like the time and effort and like dedication that I'll have to put into it. So that's like what I focused on.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Okay, what I'm going to ask you to work on now is I'm going to ask you to name in 4 words or less what this experience or what this role or job or plan, what are you going to name this plan? This is your go-to. This is why you thought you were going to Loyola, everything you thought of at Loyola. What is this plan named? I'll give you a minute to come up with a headline or title for this plan. Another 10 seconds. Caroline, what's your headline? What's your plan called?
I said finding something I love to do.
Okay. Awesome. Sydney, what's your plan called?
Can you hear me?
I can hear Sydney. I don't know about others, but
I cannot.
oh,
Addie, what's your plan called? Thanks, Cindy. We'll come back to you. We'll keep fussing with it.
I said finding a career I find joy in.
How many words is that?
Too many.
Okay, so Caroline and Addie, I'm going to actually go back to the drawing board and shorten it a little bit. And what are the key words there, and what can you use that'll just kind of characterize that plan? And again, distinguishing it from the other two that we're gonna develop. Alejandro, what's the name of your plan?
The name of my plan is Working Towards Fulfillment.
Okay. I like it. All right. Now, this last part might be a little trickier because I think it's going to be new to a number of you. And that is, if you don't, let me start again. I'm going to ask you to start to identify what you don't know. What is unknown about your journey towards this or on this plan? You might not know how to get started on something. You might not know whether there are jobs available. You might not know whether you would enjoy this job. You might not know, I think one of them, do you need to go to grad school to do it? What is it that you don't know that you need to figure out about this plan? Right? You can just jot down a bunch of things. Again, you can brainstorm. What is it that you don't know right now? Okay, go. Another 10 seconds. What don't you know? Alex, what don't you know? What's unknown?
I said what skills I will obtain in the job.
Say it again. I'm sorry, you just broke up a little bit.
I said what skills I will
Okay.
obtain, and I also said what the job exactly entails.
Okay. Good. Keep working on your list. Hadi, what's unknown for you?
I said like what difficulties I'll run into in my life and what obstacles I'll run into.
Okay. As you do this, I think those are reasonable. I think those are reasonable things. So you can approach that in a number of ways, right? Because you're not going to know the answer to that. Like, you're not going to be able to create an experiment to be able to figure out what's going to happen in the future. Okay. But if that's a big deal to you, what job can I take, or what type of job or role can I take that will allow me to be flexible, right? So if I'm looking down the Mohammed family tree, I'm thinking to myself, hey, there's a really good chance I'm going to be moving all over the damn place, right? So do I want to have a profession and a job that will allow that to happen? right? Does that make sense? That distinction and how we're framing that? I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to move all over the place, although you already have. Okay, so again, making these questions answerable is also going to be important, right? Can you do things over the next 3 to 4 years to be able to answer these questions? All right, Evan, what do you want to know?
I said just like in general what my actual field of job will be, because I'm still like unsure about my major currently. So
Okay, good. What else?
oh, me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's kind of most of the things stem from that
All
general
right, well,
idea.
let's go back. You and I know each other a little bit now. So family is really important to you. Being thankful and gratitude for everything you get is really important to you. How could maybe you come up with an experience that allows or facilitates that? Right? That's not conjecture on my part. You've told me those are things that are important to you, right? And so my sense is, again, it's your work view and your life view, but if we're looking for this idea of coherency, and those are the things that are important to you, and you really do sound like you have a blank slate here on what it is you might want to do, what are some things that you could do that would allow that or facilitate that to happen, since you know that that is important to you? The alternative, Evan, is if you were to say, I'm really sure what I want to do, and it is not consistent with my life view, right? That's the polar opposite of where you are right now. In either way, we would be addressing a coherency between those two things. Does that make sense? So the fact that I'm asking you to address this isn't necessarily because, hey, I don't know which direction I want to go, but you're going to be addressing that anyway. Like I said, it'll go to the other extreme. And to be honest, that's more, that happens more often than where you are right now. It's like, I really have to do this. You know, my parents said it was a good idea, or everybody in my family's ever done this, or I heard there's a lot of jobs, but I really don't like, or it really goes against my values. All right. So again, I'll ask all of you, you know, as we're doing this, where are you right now? That dashboard question, right? Where are you? Where do you want to go? And how can you do that in a coherent way? What do you know about right now? If you don't know what your job's going to be and you don't know what your major is going to be, what do you know? These are my values. This is what I stand for. That's a great place to start. That is a great place to start. For the artists, that's your canvas. Let's start with that blank canvas. Okay? Okay, what I would like to do now, so we've been through the workshop. The next piece here is to start to tie this to your public story. So I'm going to be asking you to work on a couple of things at a time here, right? So for your public story, remember, there's 3 components of the public story, right? The plot of your story has a challenge, a choice you've made, and an outcome, right? We talked about that a little bit in more detail, and how that is not only based on your experience, but you want to be able to convey this so that you're able to tell and share that experience with somebody else. And you started to put together stories of where your values came from to do that. As I mentioned in the mind map, those are getting quite good. All right. So the real key here is not just, hey, this is my challenge, these are the choices I had, these are my outcomes, but it's relating it to you. Why are they your challenge? Why did you feel that it was a challenge, and what did that challenge feel like? What was the conflict, right? What was it like? I wanted to do something, but I wasn't able to. I wanted to do something, but it really wasn't in line with. What's the content? And what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm doing this a little bit differently this year because I'm going to make these things come together at the end, right? What is a challenge that you're facing in pursuit of your work view or your life view? Right? So in Evan's case, like, he needs to pursue some things, maybe take some classes, experiences, reflect, to come up with a path to get him towards a job he think he might like, right? Or in Ethan's case, right, doing something that's really important for him, and certainly in the lens of his family valuing it, but that he really likes. Because even there's a number of things you really like that you should probably be considering here, right? There's a challenge, there's conflict there. This was supposed to be happening, right? It's like, oh, I need to decide really quick. Well, not really. I mean, there's a couple people that are involved with that decision that you have to make for your major. Two of them are here right now, you and me, right? I'm not going to rush you. All right. What are the choices that you have? You may have to identify those things. Options you've considered that you're going to consider. Different perspectives, different ways to go. And then which ones are you going to choose to pursue? And then there's the outcome. Now, a number of you might not know what the outcome looks like yet. The outcome could be, I chose a major in forensic sciences to be able to pursue, to prepare me for a law degree. It's like, okay. All right. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to start to identify what you would like the outcome to be, and more particularly, what you would like it to feel like, right? That's one of the things we did in the brainstorming for this plan. So not only do I want you to say, hey, I'm going to be a corporate attorney, I'm going to ask you what that experience is going to be like. What corporation? What are you going to be excited about? It's going to get you to work every day. What else are you going to be doing in your role as a corporate attorney? What other activities? How are you going to be giving back? How are you going to serve? All right. It could be in progress. Like as we get through and we start exploring these plans, I've chosen to enroll, join, apply for. Or what did you learn? It's like, well, I learned that it really makes sense for me to try something in line with my life view that's consistently with my skill, that's consistent with my skill set, that is that caters to my my ability to speak Spanish, whatever it might be. So this is what you did last week, right? This is what you put together in your introduction, what your values are, and where they came from, right? That's the beginning of your public story, right? And if you introduce yourself to somebody about a job, if you introduce yourself to somebody's parents, if you introduce yourself to an alumnus, whatever, and you were to say this, it would be true. It would be an outstanding introduction because it's about you and what you're about and what you stand for and why, right? The next piece that we're going to do is to describe a challenge that you faced or are currently facing. You're going to put together the choices that you had to deal with it, or a choice you are facing, strategies that you're going to pursue, right? So that the next piece, a challenge. I don't really like my classes, right? So maybe you're going to consider a new major. Somebody's been deciding everything for me. I'm going to develop my own path. A number of you are talking about that. It's the first time I'm on my own. I need to develop the confidence to make decisions, budget my time, make choices. And then what are the choices that develop? What strategies or steps did you take to learn more about a new major? What are you trying? What advice have you taken? What did you do? And sometimes not doing something is a choice too. What strategies are you pursuing? I signed up for a schedule, decided to talk to, worked all night, reflected on. Don't forget the Ignatian stuff, right? I mean, you can think about some of this stuff yourself and reflect. A number of you are doing that. So as we go through this, this is the part that we're going to work on right now. The challenge you're facing and the choices that you have. right? So the next piece here. The top part, smaller font. This is what we've always talked about. The bottom piece, and I'm going back to this example I used with the Capitol Hill Caper. In the past, when I've tried to find an experience to show me what it would be like to help shape policy on Capitol Hill, I've been a little overwhelmed by the process or what I could do to find and get an internship in a congressional or Senate office. I just couldn't figure out where to start. So my story, this is my story. Right after undergrad, I went to grad school up in Ithaca in health administration, and I wanted to get a health policy job. I'm from New York State. Senator Moynihan was our senator, so I applied for an internship in Senator Moynihan's office. And a little bit later in the spring, I had called to see what the progress was with my application. And you imagine, New York's a big place. And the woman on the phone asked me, sure, Mr. Armani, what are the last 2 digits of your social security number? I didn't think anything of it. People ask that all the time. I said 44. Said, I'm sorry, this year we're only evaluating applications that end in 2s and 0s. So that was it. It's over. And nothing to do. It was over. Right? So, okay, how do I get involved? What do I do from there? Right? Because that's a gravity problem. I can't change my social security number. Right? So this whole piece that I'm going to talk about, everything's based on real people and real things in that story. Right? So what I eventually want you to get to with this introduction, and this isn't necessarily for tonight, but down the road, we're going to be doing it, describing the challenge you faced, right? The choices that you've had. In this case, talking about the internships available for college students. I talked to these people that actually exist, right? Professor Schneider, where's Juan is interested in global studies. Professor Schneider in the poli-sci department. Joyce Levitin, who does outreach for Senator Cardin, to identify experiences that might make me a competitive candidate for one of those positions. They suggested I do these things. Health Outreach Baltimore, Healthcare for the Homeless, Esperanza Center. So I looked into those things. These are the things I chose for my pathway forward, right? So what I would like you to do now, let's go back to the gray box. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and I'll kind of guide you through this. I would like you to identify a number of challenges that you are facing that have to do with your path forward academically or co-curricularly at Loyola, your pursuit of a job or a career or a major, right? Maybe struggling with what people are telling you versus what you want to do, maybe figuring out what you want to do. What is the challenge that you are facing right now? Go ahead and write that down. I'll give you a minute or two. Okay, another few seconds. Nick, what's your challenge? or challenges?
Well, one of the challenges that
Would you join us? Sorry, dude.
hello? Oh. Hello? Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay. One of the challenges that I originally thought of was like picking Loyola as the college I was going to go to. So that was like the big challenge I knew was that a bunch of my friends in the past had really stressed over going to college. So I gave myself like the three choices I thought of was, I could pick one or two colleges that I really enjoyed and only apply to those to not overwhelm myself with the application process. The second one was this was kind of a drastic one, but it was like take a gap year, like just make sure you're completely committed to a college and like that you have like everything set out, the whole path for you. And then the third one was to just say like the stress is worth it and apply to a bunch of colleges and see however like how much money I get, who has the best programs. So the choice I ended up pursuing was I really liked Loyola and I went to Loyola, and to not stress myself out, I decided to only apply to Loyola. So it was a pretty straightforward process. And the outcome was that I am here and I like it here, and it made me decide to stick with bio and drop psychology. So I feel like overall it's been a pretty successful outcome.
Okay. I like your story. It's quite compelling. If you had to run that forward, so now you're here, what are you fussing with in your decision about bio and psychology and moving forward, and how it is that you're going to get to be in law school and working for a big company in a lab or whatever you decide to do?
Well, yeah, so one of the problems I faced was I
No,
originally
what are you facing right now?
Oh, right this second?
Yes.
Definitely like location wise where I want to, fully commit to nursing and where I want to, end up living and
Awesome. We can solve that. I'd like you to work on that. If that's your type thing, and if that's your top thing, and that's what you're wrestling with, I know I want to be a nurse, but I don't know where. All right, let's explore that. All right, so if that thing you do, again, this isn't your story, but I'm going to connect it. If that thing you do is being a nurse, right? And your Odyssey plan is being a nurse someplace, let's figure that out. All right, and that'll be that can be a challenge in your story. And then there can be choices as to where to go, or choices into how to figure it out, right? So there's two areas there, right? It could be Cleveland, Sacramento, and Orlando. I mean, those could be choices, but also where to go for an internship, where to go for spring break, where to go maybe for a seminar, a student conference. Like what are the choices that you have? Okay, let's think about that. All right. Cindy, you want to try again?
Different challenges that I faced were basically deciding where to go, because I did apply to a lot of schools.
Okay.
For my part. The only reason I did apply to a bunch of schools because they told us to do safety schools and reach schools as well.
Yep. That's a common strategy, right? I mean, that's common strategy. What are you fussing with now in your way forward and looking at your job or career or your major or your way forward here at Loyola?
Basically where to go afterwards, because I already know that I want to be a detective, but
okay,
my dad wants me to try for the FBI, but I don't think, like, basically location wise.
That's a challenge, right? Discerning what you want to do versus your dad. There's one you just named. Keep going.
I really don't want to stay in the area that I'm at personally. I don't like being in this area. So I did like look at like Alexandria, which is still close by.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know what else could be in Alexandria by the time you're there?
No.
FBI headquarters. Just thought I'd throw that out there just because it was there.
Mm.
Oliver, what challenge are you facing right now?
For now, my challenge I'm facing is what career path I'm gonna take after I get my computer science degree.
Okay, good. So let's fuss with that. So that thing you do is computer sciences, and there are a number of choices that you can explore, right, with a computer sciences degree. A big number, right? So that's a pretty reasonable challenge. Anybody else got one they want to share? So for Thursday, what I would like you to do, I would like you to go back to that Odyssey Plan workshop for all 3 of your Odyssey plans and prepare to share them in class. So I'll go back to it before we leave to make sure. And then there is also a worksheet that I put in Moodle for your public story that looks a lot like the Excel sheets that I was sharing on the slides that you can go through. And I would like you to develop a challenge, choice, and outcome for your public story that you're going through right now. I'd like it to be a current challenge that you're fussing with right now that addresses your pursuit of your work or life view and a well-lived and joyful life, right? And the reason that I'm putting life view in there, I wrestled with this a little bit myself, was because one of the more common, I had to go back and think about this, but one of the more common questions that students want to address is not what they want to do, but where and how, right? And very often those are quality of life decisions. I want to live near the beach. I want to live where I can ski. I want to live where the weather is good. I want to live near my family. Like those conversations and those challenges are real. So if there is a challenge as to how you are going to live your well-lived, joyful life that has to do with work or life, I would like you to put that in there. Okay? Because in all of those cases, we're going to be able to help develop those questions and address those challenges with your Odyssey plan. Okay? So if you go back to this document, this is the workshop that I would like you to have figured out. Steps 1 through 4. Don't worry about the questions to solve the unknowns. Okay? Just come up with what the unknowns are. For that thing you do, if that thing you do wasn't there anymore, and if money and stature was not an option. So I want you to go through that process for your plans. And what we are going to start with is we're going to popcorn when you come to class next week. And what we're going to do is you're going to popcorn your challenge, choice, and outcome. Okay? Thanks, everybody. If you have any questions, I'll stick around till everybody leaves. Otherwise, have a good couple of days.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amani.
Thank you.
I actually have a question. So I was wondering about Moodle. So we can see all of our grades like for each individual assignment if we click on them, but we can't see it as like a whole like all of our other classes. So we can't see what our midterm grade will be for your class. And so since midterm grades are due on Friday, I was just wondering if there was a way that you could do that.
And I've already turned yours in, Addie. So let me see here. So there are 28 possible points in the class right now that and you've gotten 25 and a half of those.
Okay.
All right. And that doesn't count class participation. So you've been to all the classes, so your grade will go up a little bit from that. So 28 minus 2.8 is what? 25.2 is an A. I'm totally doing the math off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. So now let's go back to this because I'm not trying to be secretive.
I also know that I'm not the only one that was wondering about it.
No, that's okay. So what is it that so there is a view that you can have for your total grade? Is that what you're telling me? that I'm
Yeah.
not showing you that everybody else seems to be? Okay. All right. So I'll tell you what, give me a couple days and I'll figure that out. I'm not doing it intentionally.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm happy to look into it. Like, I'm not trying to hide anything. So
I just think that I know that everyone's talked about it in our group chat and is like, oh, like we can't see our final grade.
so this is the question that I'm going to have for you.
hmm
Why are you the only one to ask me about it?
Because I told them that I'd ask at the end of class.
Okay. All right. Why has nobody else asked me if it's an issue?
I'm not sure. I don't think that people really realize that, like, I think they just thought that you knew how to do it and that you just hadn't.
No, you just tell everybody that it's the opposite.
Okay.
That I thought you were seeing it, and I
Mhm.
didn't know.
Yeah.
So really, there's no.
Like I have an individual group chat with Isabella and Sydney because we're all forensic studies.
Forensic sciences, yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of classes together because of it.
Mhm.
And so they were talking about it in the group chat right before class. And I was like, oh, like I'll just ask at the end of class so that we all
Yeah.
know.
I thought that's what you were seeing, so it's not a big deal. I'll look into it.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
How are you doing?
I'm okay.
All right. You're gonna have to go home, do you think, or you're gonna?
Well, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I already went home to like just like pack my stuff because my house. So my parents actually right now there's nowhere to really go home to.
Right. Okay.
So we moved out yesterday actually. They moved out completely. And other people move in on Friday. So right now they're living in the upstairs like kind of apartment of my step grandparents' house.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
There's not really a place for me to even really go home, but
I understand.
Mhm.
All right. Let me know if you need anything.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Addie.